So I would start with the melodies. I always start with melodies because I think that if you start with drums, my ears get tired really quickly, and I don't know where the vibe is going until I hear some melodies. So then my ears are tired, and then I'm like trying to add melodies, and like I don't know. I always start with my melodies. So I will play you the melodies first. I'll mute them so you can hear them. They're over here. So they're all kind of the same instrument, but there's different layers to it, and they kind of just like build. It's the I used the Monopoly Korg, and it's the Aquablock plugin, which is why the tune is called Aquablock. Very creative with my song names. So the toms sound a bit like the kick drum, but they're not. And I did loads of stuff to them. I put them. I used the where is it? So I use the filter freak quite a lot because when you go through the settings, it creates like weird like movement. Sorry, my terminology is not great, but if I turn this off, it just sounds like that. And when I put it on, that gives it movement. And if you scroll through all of them, you can get some like really cool sounds. I'll scroll through some so you can hear. Yeah, you get the drift. It's like really fun to play with these. And you can make your own as well, but I never do that because I'm lazy. I just like using the presets. Yeah. So that's that. Anyone have any questions so far about how I've made any of the sounds or made things sound the way that they sound? Nope. Okay, well, I'll carry on then. Let me just take that one back to the way it sounded before. I can't remember which one it was. Well, anyway, after that, after the melodies and the toms. Huh? Okay, great, thanks. Finished now anyway, but that one? Keep doing that. I'm probably gonna need you again. Okay, so after the toms, I'm just gonna make a loop because this keeps happening and it's really annoying. So after that, I can't remember exactly what I did after that, but I think it was this hat. And then I'm just gonna bring everything in. Some rain sounds in there because it sounds like rain. The track, well, to me, does anyway. And I downloaded it from the internet. I didn't record it myself. I tried, but it was really hard and it sounded like shit. So I downloaded it from the internet, and it sounds like this. If you can hear it, wait. Can you hear it? Yeah, I can't hear it. Okay, well that's the rain. And yeah, that's it really. Oh, and then I don't know why I did this, but when I was bouncing it to get the pre-master sent off, I bounced it out like as a whole track, and then I put it back in here in this channel, and then just automated the whole audio in certain parts to make it with this plugin, which is an Eventide H3000 Factory plugin, which is really great, and it makes things sound like, it gives things like movement again, and like adds like kind of weird delays and effects. And I used it in here. So if you can see the automation on this bottom channel, I've just made it like, if you listen to it from the start on the audio, which I bounced and then put back in, it does that, and then it just does that every now and again when I wanted it to just have like a little bit of a, like a, I don't know, a zhuzh. And I did like loads of different versions, as you can see here, but this is the one I was the most happy with. Don't know if you guys want to hear the whole track on it. That's why I keep skipping. I'm a bit like, should I play the whole thing? But I can play a bit more of it, and then I can move on to another track. Or if you guys want to ask me some questions about this one. No? Okay. Then, yeah. Of the same notes, you mean? No, so the toms, okay, yeah, very good question. I haven't touched on any of that yet. This is why I need you to ask me questions. So the toms are, they're a completely different instrument. So like the melodies are all the Monopoly. Most of them are anyway. I think the pad here is the Jupiter. These are like, they are the Arturia plugins, which if you can save up some money and buy them, they're really good. You get like literally all of these like very kind of seminal synths, like the DX7, Jupiter 8, Matrix, like so many synths that would cost like a lot of money in real life, and they sound really good. And yeah, the toms are actually software instruments that I've made on the EXS24. So I make all my own kits, all my drum kits, and they're all there. You can see them. And the toms are just 808 toms. So I've made a whole drum kit of just toms, so that I can like play them kind of across and pitch them and stuff. And yeah, I do that with quite a lot. Like I did it with some like 808 claps and stuff. That's another one. And then there's like a 707 pitched, which is just like everything is pitched so that like the kick drum's like really like whoa, and it's just like a weird pitchy kick drum and like kit. So yeah, in answer to your question, they are not the same instrument. All of the drums are software instruments which I've made myself from samples that I've gathered from various different places. Yep. Pardon? Compromise? What does this mean? Oh, okay, compress. Yes, I do. I do. I do. I do. I compromise. Yeah, I do EQ. I like, because I think of the whole thing as like a box that you need to fill, and if you have like some elements that, you know, where you don't need the higher frequencies or the lower frequencies, I EQ those off so that there's more room for the things that do have high frequencies, etc. So with like my kick drums, well, this one, is that a kick drum? No, it's not a kick drum. This kick drum has been EQ'd just a little bit here, a little bit of a bump in where the bass is. Let me just play it because I can just move it around. Sometimes I don't really know why I do things. I just do it and like listen to how it sounds, basically, because I'm, like I said, I'm not the most technical, but here I wanted that frequency to be a bit punchier because of the toms. The toms were kind of just taking up a lot of space, and then I wanted that to be a bit louder. So if I turn it off, it's not the same. Ooh, it's gone. And yeah, I EQ everything a little bit, like I said, and just remove frequencies that aren't needed. And I compress. This kick drum has a compressor on it, but it's not turned on. I always put the bit crusher on the kick drum a little bit, which is a distortion plugin from Logic that I really like, and it makes it sound. So if I take it gives it that weird like hiss on the top. If I turn it off, then it sounds crap. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear the difference. And like if you turn the downsampling up, it makes it even louder, which I really like. Yeah. Any more questions? Yes? Hi. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't usually do that. I usually will put it on individual channels, but I'm not. But I think because I'd finished this track and I know what happened. So I'd finished this, and at the last kind of minute, I realized I didn't like the kick, and I changed the kick. And then when I put the new kick in, I listened to the whole thing, and I liked the sound of the kick, but I thought that I got a bit bored of it just being on constantly. So I wanted something to just, like every now and again, just like cut through. And instead of just like, going and automating every single channel, I just like bounced it out and just automated this one last channel. And so it's not on the master, but it's on the audio channel. And then I bounced that. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's how I did that. You're welcome. Any more? No? Are you sure? Okay, should I move on to another project or? Okay, let's do another project. So I think let's do this one, which is slightly different vibe. I just want to show you this one because I used my voice and I sampled it, and that's fun. So this is what this sounds like. Not very loud. Graham showed me a trick earlier. Where is he? To turn it up, which I didn't know, which is using this utility gain on the master to give it volume like this. So with this, I started with my voice, this, which I just did one note, which was like, and then just like, it was really crap. And then just put it on the sampler and then just played it higher notes. That's literally it. And then just added loads of effects to it. So it's got a EQ'd all the bottom end of it so that you could just, like I said before, got rid of frequencies that I didn't think were necessary. 2 secs. Make a loop. Okay. Yeah, and then I added this Eventide plugin again because it's really great. It sounds like that without it. I can it's just really good. I'll show you in the work in progress how that plugin works because it's excellent. And I also added a reverb, the UAD reverb, and a spreader. I always use the spreader because it just like kind of gives it like a nice panning from side to side. I don't know if you can hear the difference, but it gives it stereo. And the Echo Boy, great plugin. And yeah, and then I think I went on to, I think I did the snare, because the snare is like one of the main parts. To be honest, I can't remember exactly the order in which I did this, but it probably probably was the melodies first. That horn. So, yeah, that's that one. There wasn't that many melodic elements for this one, actually. It was just my voice. This is kind of very different than the stuff I normally make. But I was inspired by some like halftime drum and bass records that I've been listening to, which is why I made this. And I like it. It sounds a bit like grime and other stuff. Everyone's like, sounds like dubstep. Someone told me it sounds a bit like Timberland, which I was like, cool. It's my favorite compliment. So yeah, we can go through it. Would you like me to go through every channel and show you what I've put on it, or is that boring? You can listen to the whole track. I just keep thinking that might be a bit boring, so I just don't. But I'll play the whole track. Okay, great. That's just it's a sample that when you just press it, it goes boom. So it's really, it's from the Negawelt has these sample packs, and he has them on his website. You can download them for free. This is the sample pack, which is the Yamaha DX200. And let me see if I can find it. Okay, I'll have to do it on key. But yeah, it's just one note basically, and it just does that in my logic because I've tried to do that before. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just I need a Britney mic so that I can like do everything, like do this at the same time. Yeah, I've tried to get that effect before. I've tried to do it before myself with bass by like doing the pitch thing whilst I play a bass note, and it always just sounds really weird. So I'm really glad that I found it because it sounds. Oops, no, it's somewhere up here. One more. Oh wait, where is it? It's here somewhere. Oh, where is it? Okay, I don't know where it is. Oh wait. Okay, guys, I don't know where it is, but it's here somewhere. It's in this kit. And yeah. I'm sorry I can't find it. I can keep trying if you want. Okay. Any more questions? Yep. Yeah, I'll like I said before, I just will start with the melodies and just like I get very like I'm like, what vibe do I want? Do I want like euphoria or do I want like happy? And like up until I made my album, I really didn't like kind of like minor chords because I was like, I don't want to make people sad on the dance floor. I was like, because whenever I like play something minor, it was like, duh, and I'd be like, oh, that's like, whenever I play songs like that in my sets, I think people get a bit bored, or I don't know. So I was like, euphoria only, or I know this is very euphoric, by the way. But like euphoria or kind of like happy. So I think of the vibe that I want, and it's usually something that I just imagine myself on ecstasy, and I'm like something that would make me just be like, so you know what I mean. So I try and do that in my studio, and then kind of like I create as many layers as I possibly can of melodies before it starts to sound like a bit cluttered, and then I kind of sometimes we'll do the bass line first, sometimes we'll do the drums first. But recently I've been doing the bass line first because then I can fit the drums around it rather than like trying to jam a bass line in once you've already got a kick drum, which sometimes can be quite hard because they clash a lot. And then just kind of build around the melodies really, and then I kind of usually just get loads and loads of channels with loads and loads of elements, and then just start editing and just cutting it down and deleting things so that I don't have so much, but it's good to have like loads to work with, because when you're arranging, especially on Logic, because Logic is not the most intuitive of programs, arranging is like the way that I arrange things. I'll show you when I show you my work in progress, but I kind of just copy and paste the loop over and over and over again, and then just like delete things and add things, and that's when it's really good if you have like loads of channels with loads of stuff, so then you can just spread it all around, and it's better than having not enough and then trying to like kind of just fit things in as you go along, in my opinion. For me, that's kind of the way it works. And then sometimes when I get a bit like stuck with a track and I'm like, oh, I just need to like stop, like looking at it and stop listening to it for a bit, but like I'm really precious about like one specific element and I don't want to delete it, I save that version and keep it as it is, and then I start like remixing the version that I have. So then I have the saved version, and then I just like almost do like a full remix of the version I have and delete all of the things that I was precious about because I still have them in a different version. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell my process, but I'll expand into it when I show you my work in progress. Any more questions about this one? Yes? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, like I knew that I wanted to have some dance tracks on it because I like albums that have like variety. So I didn't I kind of made those like I normally would. Apart from one actually, Sesame doesn't have a breakdown, which is like I've literally absolutely none of my dance tracks like don't have a breakdown, and that's the only one that doesn't. So that and that was because I was writing an album, so I was thinking about the whole thing differently. So like the thing about writing an album is that you're like it's like there's no rules. Whereas like when I'm writing an EP that's like a dance 12 that's going to be sold as a dance 12 and that's the package, you want people to like it and to buy it, and it needs to have certain elements and that like people will want to play in a club. Whereas like when you're making an album, that's not necessarily the aim. And like yeah, you want some of the tracks to be played in the club, but at the same time ultimately it's kind of like free and you can just do whatever you want. So like some tracks can be like 1 minute long, some tracks can be like 3 minutes long, and it just really doesn't matter. Like I felt a lot more free to just make music without it having to fit to a specific format. um, which is the only thing that I did know is that I wanted there to be like a good balance between like dance tracks and like more like ambient stuff, and maybe some stuff that is in between, like this one basically. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Oh, okay, good. Basically, I didn't think about it like it wasn't. There was no concept. It wasn't like I had this concept, and no, it was just I just wanted to make some tracks and hoped that they would fit together because I made them. Basically, yeah. Any more questions? Yeah. Uh huh. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I don't know anything about music theory. I did like two piano lessons once, and in one piano lesson they taught me something that I like basically use every time that I make music, but I need this to be plugged in to show you. Um because it's like a thing. It's not. I'm not even going to be able to explain it in a way which is like this is A, B, and C. No, it'll be like when I press this note, if you go like this, you get a specific scale because basically every note has its own scale. So if you start with one note and then find the scale for that note, which you'll know because it's like da 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 da, da, then you can use any of the notes in that scale that you just found, if that makes sense. I can show you. I can show you in here, but generally I just do it by sound, and I have like even though I haven't studied music theory, I have quite a good ear for like when there's bum notes and when I can. So I like yeah, I just go by what I like to hear at the time, which I think is kind of good because like if if in a day I feel a specific way, then obviously something is going to resonate with me a little bit more than on a different day. Um, but generally, yeah, it's the ecstasy feeling. Uh, No, yeah, I don't draw in notes. I never draw in notes. I always do everything on the keyboard. Like even the drums, I play them in on the keyboard. Because in Logic, it's drawing in notes is not is like I've seen people do it on Ableton and it looks so much easier. Like you can just be like, ugh. Whereas in Logic, it's kind of a ball ache. So it's a lot easier to just press, just do it. But that's why sometimes like basically all of my rhythms are quite similar. So sometimes I do think about exploring Ableton and exploring how different like the rhythms that I make would sound if I was using a different software, basically, because it is kind of I feel like a one trick pony. But that's maybe because I haven't learned it to its full potential, and maybe I should. So yeah, I do everything on the keyboard. Any more questions about this? Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So like I'll tap it in and it will be like really out of time, and then yeah, I mean, and then I'll if it sounds too out of time, I'll quantize it here in this corner, so you can like see here the quantize, and I'll go to 16A swing A, which is not very swung, and then I'll start trying all the different swings. I used to have, you can download the MPC settings, swing settings, and have them on your laptop, but I have it, and then when I use it, I'll use one swing setting, and then it won't let me use the same one for the next channel for some reason. So I'm still trying to figure out why that's happening. But like, yeah, this is just a problem I'm having. But I quantize, and then I swing it, and then sometimes the swings don't do what I want it to do. So then I will go into the sequencer, then I will go into the piano, and I'll be like, wait, where are my notes? Yeah, I will go into the thing, and I'll start like moving them around. Oh, there they are. For God's sake. Yeah. So if these swing settings are still not doing what I want it to do, and it's still not sounding how I want it to sound, I'll move them individually, like by like a milli. But this is why Logic is long, because I'll spend ages to be like a bit to the left and a bit to the right and a bit to the left, and then sometimes it still doesn't sound how I want it to sound, and that just drives me nuts. But eventually I do get it sounding how I want it to sound. I think generally I like things to sound quite swung. Like I just like it more. I that's the music that I like dancing to. Like when I'm dancing, I'm like, like garage is quite swung. I listen to a lot of garage. Like I said, I used to listen to a lot of kind of like Kerry Chandler and stuff like that, and that's all like very swung. So, but then some electro isn't swung at all, and I also really like that. So it just kind of depends. Like I've made so many different styles of music, but it's all kind of has my own like melodies and sounds into it. So I feel like it all still ties together. But I have, sometimes I'll be like, sometimes I'll be in a club and I'll hear this like really fast like techno tune, and I'll be like, I want to make a really fast techno tune, and then I'll go home and try and do that. But then but then sometimes I'll try and make a track without any melodies, and then and then I'm just like, something is missing, and then I'll just be like, and then it's much better. So I really struggle doing stuff without melodies, and I think that's going to be my next challenge. I want to try and do an album that's like with only like using one melody per track or something, and see how that comes out. But I think I'm going to struggle. Yeah. Any more questions? Yeah. Because a friend like gave me Logic. He gave it to me for free, and I had no money, and I was like, okay, cool. And then he just showed me how to use it, and in his opinion, Logic sounds better than Ableton. And he showed me some stuff, and then I got my lessons. So it's just what I learned in, really. Like if that friend had Ableton instead of Logic, I would be using Ableton probably. So yeah, but I do like it. I would definitely like to start learning Ableton just to see. But I know how to use Logic, and it does sound good. So I'm pretty happy using it. Yeah. Any more? Nope. Okay. Should we move on to the next track? Okay. Let's have a look. Should I just play the whole thing again, and then maybe you can ask me some more questions? Okay. Maybe we should do the remix now, actually. So I did a remix for MJ Cole. He did this like weird like kind of score album, which is, I reckon he wants to maybe get into the film business, because it's very like, strings and pianos, and they asked me to remix one of the tracks, and I chose one of them and just basically took the strings and put drums in it and a bass. And I'll play it to you, and then I'll show you the parts that I used. Yeah. Can you hear it? I'll just add this thing again. That string is the original track. So is the piano. Anyway, that's it. Thanks. Thanks. So all of the drums are mine. I took, because obviously there's no drums in the song that he sent me. There's just like all of these strings, and I kind of really struggled chopping them up, and which is because they're like a different time signature, but I couldn't figure out what time signature because I don't know about that stuff. So I just kind of like, in all these bits where you can see here at the bottom, this is where I just chopped the audio, and then what I did to be able to fit it in, I placed it so that it wouldn't sound too out of whack with the beat, and then at the end I just like looped the end of it so that it would go ding 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 ding. Does that make sense? I'll show you. For example, here in the breakdown, just chopped it like this. So I chopped the end off and then looped it. So this is just a big loop. If I do this, you'll see that that's the bit I chopped there. And yeah, and then I just like looped it all the way out and made it sound like it fitted, basically. And then the other section is, oh yeah, I also sampled like one of the main strings here and put it in the sampler. So I just got like one big note, and then this one I just played on the piano. Yeah, just one string. That was, I think this is how I started it. And then to add some more layers, because I needed to have as much of the original track in as possible, I looped another bit and just made it kind of a bit that like would build a bit of tension, you know? And then I also sampled one of the lower strings that sounded a bit like a bass, which I don't actually like that sound very much, but with the rest it sounds okay. So it's yeah, it like fits when everything else is in there. And then I also looped another bit. I basically just like chopped the audio really kind of like not very like accurately and make sure that it wasn't clipping. I don't know if you guys, for those who don't know what clipping is, it's just when you chop a piece of audio when the waveform is open, and then it just makes a clipping sound. So you should always chop it where at the zero crossing points, like when the waveform is doing this, and then it won't make a clipping sound. And I also chopped this bit and made it sound like this. But yeah, it was really fun because there was no percussion, and I was able to just like add all my percussion and then just like use like most of the melodic elements from this, and like they were like mixed really well, like they sounded really loud and like really nice. So I had some like really nice audio to manipulate, and then I did the bass line with a microkorg, which is here. Recorded the audio in, and then that's my vocal again, me going yeah. But then sampled, pitched up. I've really been enjoying doing that recently. Yep, and that's it really. And then just like added some more of my melodies of my own, just because, you know, why not? Yeah, that's pretty much it with this remix. I can show you, I want to find the original track so I can show you it, but I don't know where to find it because they didn't send it to me. But I can show you some of the original stems that they showed me, that they sent me, so you can see what it sounded like. So the main bit that I cut up was, I think it was this one. It's very emotional. Yep. And then I used this as well. That's the bit that I used. That's at the beginning. Yeah, that's pretty much it with that one. Does anybody have any questions about it? I don't know. They haven't told me. They've mastered it, but it was all done through Universal, and they're just like, sorry if any of you work for Universal, but they're a nightmare to work with. They like made me jump through hoops, like just to even get paid. It was just like, I mean, they still haven't paid me. So I don't know when it's going to be released, but very different experience to working with. I did a remix for Orbital, and like they like both of the people from Orbital like messaged me personally to like tell me that they liked the remix, and it was like so much nicer and like personal, whereas this was just like, I did not hear from MJ Cole. And I just like heard from like a person that heard from him that heard from someone else, and it was a mess. But I did really enjoy doing the remix, so I'm happy I did it. Any questions? Oh, good question. Let's have a look. So for this string loop, I have a filter because I wanted it to sound like, you know, like kind of like DJ Sneak disco, like stringy disco thing, and I wanted it to sound like that, like building tension. So I have like I have the Filter Freak, and when I do the filter, I always make the resonance really high when the filter is like low pass, and then obviously just like make it dip as the filter opens up, so that there's that kind of like dramatic effect. So there's the resonance like all the way up there and all the way back down, and then the frequency starting all the way down and then going all the way back up. I use that filter quite a lot, as you can see in most of the channels, because I just really like it. What else do I have going on? This is just the volume of this like string bass line. What else do I have going on? Not that much else. Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, on my vocal there's quite a bit of the filter as well because it was too loud, and I was worried that they'd be like, that wasn't from the song, and I was thinking that they might not want my vocal on it because maybe it wasn't from the song, but they didn't. So yeah, that's there, and there's some on the bass line as well, just because it was too punchy when it's not there. Oh, doesn't sound that bad actually. But yeah, I wanted it to be a little bit softer. It sounded a bit too harsh without it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I didn't really do that much automation here for some reason. There you go. Anything else? Yep. What is on bus 1? Let's have a look. Bus 1 is... Oh, so I do this. I send all of my drums to one reverb on a bus because then somebody told me once that if you do that, they sound like they were recorded in the same room. So I like that. That makes sense to me. So now I do that all the time. I always send all of my drums there. And sometimes I send other stuff to it as well. Just because if you think about it, that kind of makes sense. If you have different reverbs going on in different things, like they're all like different lengths and different types of reverb might sound a bit messy and like clash a little bit. But maybe not. I think that's just how I see it, but it seems to work and it sounds good. Anything else? No one? Should we move on? Different track? Am I just going to show you my whole album? Okay. What's the time? Because then I can judge how long we have and how much more to show you. Okay. Right. So let's move on to a different track. Do you want like a dancey track or like an ambient track? Dancey. Okay, let's do that. Well, I'm going to show you that in the end. No, I mean I can show you now, but I need to plug in the microcord because I was thinking of doing it at the end so then I can unplug my charger. Although it's fully charged now. Let's just do one more like dancey track, and then we can move on. So we can. Which one? Let's go for Sesame. Okay. So this is the track from the album that I told you has no breakdown, which I've never done before, and I was quite happy with that because I usually do a breakdown because I get a bit bored of the same loop. So I'm just like, it needs a breakdown, but I didn't get bored of this loop, so didn't do a breakdown. Quite happy with it. Don't know why it's taking so long to load. Wow. What's going on? Sorry about this. Okay, we might have to go for a different track because... Okay. Let's do that one. I have so many versions of it. I think it might be this one. Oh wait, actually. I don't know if this is the right version because it has the old breakdown. But let's just hear it because it might be the right version. So I'll just play it. I automated the BPM there so that it slows down and then gets faster and faster again. That's that one. Any initial questions about this one? Should I go through it first? I'll go through it. Okay, so with this one I did a lot of layering. I actually think I started this one with the drums because I wanted to do something with a break, which is a one-off for me. And I chopped up this break to just from the big breaks folder that I'm sure if you have a breaks folder is probably in there. I'll play it. Yeah. Just like quite energetic, dynamic in like brightness and like mids and stuff. I like it. I just really like energetic stuff. And and I don't like it when breaks are like slowed down too much because I think they lose quite a lot of their like charm and like drive. So I only slowed it down a little bit. It's 140, and I did lots and lots of layering. So I do this thing when I make music sometimes where I will, for example, where is this bass line? Okay, so I'll use the same template that I used for that, and I'll open up new channels with new instruments, and there'll be like a chime or a bell or something like that, and then I'll move the MIDI notes to the new channel, and then it will play the same MIDI notes but in a different instrument, basically, as you can see. And I do that a lot because it's really fun and it's a really quick way of just getting different layers of melody. And there's more. Where's the other one? There you go. Oh, that's something else. It's a layer. There's the other one here. Yeah. There's just quite a few. There was more, but then I edited down. I used my vocal again. Can't hear that well, but me saying want. And what else did I do? Oh, the reverses. So this is another thing I do, which I really enjoy doing, and I think it gives it. It's another, in the first track that I played you, and I had automated the final thing to make it have little, kind of rolls. Does anybody remember that? Okay, good. So I did something similar here, but not with the final audio. So I will take a section where I think it needs a bit of a break. For example, here, if you can see these little notes, I basically, all these software instruments will have been going all the way through across to 65. And then I just bounce that one bar. I'll bounce that out, and then I'll bring it back in and chop it, and then just basically loop one beat over and over and over, and then reverse the last one so that it sounds like this. Yeah, and I do that quite a lot. And in this one, I didn't reverse it. In this one, I just did, I did this like slow down function, so it sounds like you're slowing down the record. You can see it. I can't use the mic and do this at the same time. Yeah, you can see it there, and you can like move this around so that like it slows down like with the curve upwards or downwards, and it sounds slightly different. And yeah, I do that a lot, and I've done it in several tracks because it just gives it like a bit of a. I used to try and do like snare rolls and be like boom boom, but then I just didn't. It sounded really crap, obviously, or just when I did it. So I decided to do it like this. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about this one? Are you sure? Okay, well, I'll just move on to a different track then. Let's maybe go for, Let's go for like a more ambient-y thing, just to, have a contrast. And then I'll show you my work in progress. And then we're finished. No. Okay. So this is one of the ambient tracks from my album. I don't know if you can hear it. Get the gist of that one. Just does the same thing for a bit. I used my vocal again and pitched it, and I was just saying the word travel. It's like travel. So it's like you can hear it. It has like different pitches. and just, yeah, because it's fun. And then I also use this. I downloaded some samples from the NASA website. So the NASA website has these sounds that they've recorded from some shuttle in space, and they're like sounds from space. And this was the sound, and I really liked it. And I thought it was called, it's called sun sonification. But I thought it was called sun notification, so that's why I called my track sun notification. And then I realized that it's called sun sonification. But I like mine. It's a bit like notification from a phone, but like from the sun, you know. And then and then I did some pads from the M1, which is my all-time favorite synth because it's amazing. And the clarinet from the M1 again. I was a bit worried because Cool Super used some clarinets that his dad played live on his album, and then I made this, and then I was like, oh shit, mine has clarinets, but mine are like fake clarinets. So I had to call him and just be like, do you mind if I use some fake clarinets on my album? And he said it was fine, and I wouldn't have cared anyway, but I did. You know, I was being polite. And then what's this one? Oh yeah, this is, I love this sound. This is another nice sound from the M1. Just love the way it sounds. I used a lot of like software plugins for my album, actually. Didn't really use that much gear. And that's pretty much it with that one. I did have some like record noises in there, which I do add record noises sometimes. Not like really poppy ones, because I don't want it to sound like it's a record. I just like having some texture sometimes, because it just, especially when there's not that many elements, it's nice to just add a bit of texture in some way. Can't even hear it. It's really quiet. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's not in there anymore anyway. But yeah, that's one of the more ambient-y kind of tracks. And I used that plugin that we were talking about earlier on my voice. Oh, wait, no, I didn't in the end. Never mind. But I used it somewhere. Did I use it here? No, wait. Here it is. So I can show you a few things about this. Well, just the presets of this plugin, because they're really good. So it just has lots of presets like this, like weird delays. I don't know if you can hear it anymore, but yeah, like in like weird feedback and like pre-delay and things like that. And here's like here you have like all the options. Some of them are like a bit mental, so I use the more like tame ones sometimes. Yeah. Yes. See, you probably know more than me about this. I think it is, but it has lots of different, like, I don't exactly know what it does. I just know it like does weird delay things that make it sound nice. Oh, that's just the M1. That's why I like it. That's what it sounds like. It's just, it has, I think this one, yeah, it's just that preset. It has loads of presets like that are just, because it uses like, I think it has like 4 different voices in it or something like that, and it will like sometimes just, some of the presets will be layering like 4 voices, and it just makes it sound really shimmery. It's just such a nice synth. I love it. And it's completely digital. It's great. And these plugins, the Korg M1 and the Monopoly, I think I got them both for like £80 or something. They're not expensive, which is pretty good compared to like the Arturia ones that I was showing you before, which are quite pricey. But yeah, I would recommend getting those if you're like want some more like pads and things like that. Yeah. Any more questions? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just listened to it. And this one doesn't. So this one, how did I? So this one, it's not really automated that much. It's just I just played the vocal like on the piano. So that's why you get the different notes, because it's like spread across the sampler and it's pitched. You know what I mean? You probably did, because there's a delay. There is a delay. You're right. There wasn't like a wobbly noise, wasn't there? Yeah. But there is no automation on it. It's just the volume. I think it's just the preset of the H delay, which is also a great plugin because it also has great presets. Yeah, it's modulation feedback, and it's just, I think that's just the way it sounds. Yeah. Any more questions about this one? No? Okay. Maybe I'll show you my work in progress now, and then we can plug this microcorg in. Okay, let's have a look. Where is it? Oh, you okay? Okay, so I started making this the other day, and this is kind of how I would start. Like, I make a loop like this, and then I'll just play it to you. It's very loud. Here's where like I would just have this loop playing, and I would start like adding stuff over the top of it, just like keep adding until it just sounds like, you know, way too much, and then I would start arranging it and taking things out and putting things back in. Some of the things that I would add, I might have to put the mic down to do this because I can't do it with one hand, so I'm gonna talk really loudly. This is all MIDI. This is all like software instruments and synths. I've used the DX7 here. So that's the DX7. So probably this. some other MIDI notes that I want to play myself on so this bit's always embarrassing. I don't like doing this in front of people, but I'm gonna do it anyway. When I make music with other people and they're like, come on, just come up with a melody, and I'm just like and they're like watching me and this is like that times 1,000 because I can't really remember which record a bunch of that in, and then it would sound unbearable, and then I would start arranging it, and I'll show you a little bit how I arrange it, because that's the bit that I can't remember who told me this. I think it might have been Graham, but my friend, he's older. But he'd read an article once about somebody who arranges tracks by just copying and pasting this, just like over and over a few times, and then just kind of making it the length of the track. Looks lazy, but very effective. And then that's it, it's finished. and I started arranging things like this, and it's actually really good because then you kind of have like rather than just being like, not having any of this and just elongating things and being like, what's next? And you see all this like empty space and it's like really daunting. You just have everything there, and then you can just like delete, add, and it just makes it so much easier. So then, I would just probably like start without the kick drum. Well, there's no kick drum. I would probably not start with any of the percussion. Start with this snare with probably. Arranging is a nightmare on Logic, is what I was saying. I find it really difficult because you have to just do this and you spend a lot of time like trying to fill the computer. But that's how I would arrange it. I would just keep adding things, and then eventually I would do something like what I did in the other track, and like I'll show you how to do that. The chopping. So I would make a loop, the reverse thing. So I would make a short loop here. different, isn't it? Doesn't sound like how it sounded before. Anyway, something like that. And then I would loop it, and then I would I would fade it out. I would use this fade tool. Huh? Oh, is that why that's happening? So there you go. Ooh. Nice. Ah, exactly. Why are you doing this? No, honestly, it's a nightmare. I don't know why it's separate. Sorry, guys. Not good day for me. Okay, so now it should be fine. Thank you. I'm gonna be my helper. Okay, and then I'll do the final little bit with the slowing down. I'll use the fade tool. I can't remember how to do this. I can't believe this is happening to me. This is how I do it normally. Guys, I'm sorry. There we go. And now she's gonna do. Oh, okay, now I remember now. Maybe I should show you. Okay. Okay, here we go. So I think this should work. And then we can like maybe do this. And then we can fade out. Okay, here it is. Third, push through. Slow down. There we go. That's the one. I'm sorry, that was really elongated. Okay, anyone have any questions? No? Okay, well, I can show you another project if you like. I feel like I've covered quite a lot of my process. It's very simple. I'm not a very complicated producer. So if there's anything else you want to know, please ask. Otherwise, I can show you something else and then we can finish. You? Yeah, get feedback from your friends. Like I just I kind of like knew when the first track that I wanted to release was ready. And the thing is, there's also like if you're like an impatient person, you're going to think that your music is ready probably before it's ready. So that's why it's really good to get feedback from your friends. I was definitely an impatient person, and I was like, this is ready, this is ready. And then I had to, get lots of feedback. And there was definitely times where my friends were like, this isn't ready, you need to work on it. And I'd be like, damn. So I'd just have to go back and just keep working on it. And then, so ask friends who are quite critical, and maybe ask friends if you have any friends who like have already released music. Definitely like get their opinion. But I think you'll also just know, like, it's kind of a mixture of just getting some opinions from some friends that will be honest with you, and also just if you make a track, you probably will get to a point where you're like, okay, this is ready and I'm happy with this, and like play it in the club, see if it works, see how it sounds in the club. Like, or if you don't have access to a club, give it to a friend who can play it in the club and they can give you feedback. Just try and get as much feedback from as many scenarios as you possibly can, basically. That's what I did. Yeah, the first track I thought was ready, and I played it in a club, and it sounded awful in the club, and it was just a nightmare. And I had to like mix it really quickly because everybody was like, ah. No, not really, but yeah, something like that. It was really like the bass was really loud, and it was definitely not ready, and had to get some like very honest, crude feedback from some friends, which was at first a bit like, oh no, but then you learn to get used to it and you learn to appreciate it, and then yeah, it'll be fine. Send me some stuff and I'll tell you if it's ready. Any more questions? No? You? Hi. I usually get them when I've done the loop. So like I just showed you a loop. I usually, like I said, I'll keep adding stuff until I get a creative block, and then I'm just like, ugh, and then what I do is I just start something new. Because in my opinion, if you spend too long going over a loop and the longer you spend on something and listening to it over and over again, the more likely I am to eventually think it's a piece of shit and never use it again. So I kind of just, as soon as I start getting a bit sick of it and my ears are tired, I just stop working on it and just start something new, fresh, and like exciting that I can get excited about. And then maybe I'll go back to that same one like that same day, or I might go back to it the next day. But it's all about just like not making yourself tired of it too quickly. Because honestly, every time that I've spent too long on a track, I almost always like listen to it back like 3 days later, and I'm like, what a waste of time that was. But it's never a waste of time, because you're always like learning. But in the moment when you feel frustrated, that's how I feel. So that's definitely what I've learned from that. Yes. Less now than it used to. Like now I can probably make something, I can probably get a track arranged in like a day, and then, but then that's the easier bit for me now. Like then after that comes like all the EQing and processing and automating, and then probably changing the arrangement after you play it in the club. So that's the process that takes a long time. Like getting the kind of skeleton of it together and the general idea doesn't take me long, but then kind of like everything that comes afterwards, the editing and playing it out and then editing it again, is what takes time. That will take me like 2 weeks or something. But it used to take me a lot longer. Actually, that arranging technique that I was talking about really changed like how long it takes me to do stuff, because before, like I said, it was just this kind of vast empty space that I had to fill, and it just required a lot more like kind of like vision almost, which I have, I guess, but not, it's just so much harder to picture a track when you just see this empty space than when you just have things that you can just delete and add. Does that make sense? Any more questions? I think you first and then you. About what? Sorry. Mm-hmm. I'll show you. I'll show you. Okay, so I'll open that remix again, because that's a very good example of lots of badly chopped audio that I had to like fade in and out because of the clicking. But basically, it's when you're chopping audio and listen. Are you listening? So when you have a piece of audio and it's like something really dynamic, like a pad or like these strings that I used. Oh wait, this is the radio version. Hang on. Yeah, and it's something very dynamic and it's just like a big wall of sound. If you cut it just anywhere, it will most likely have a click at the end or at the beginning. Because when you look at the waveform, wait, for example, this, if you can see, it has like a bunch of like fade out, like fadey things. That's because there was a click at the beginning and the end. Let's just play this on its own. So if I remove the fade, which is, can you hear? Oh no, can't really hear it in that one. Maybe it's not present. I'm just going to get another like bit of random audio and I'll chop it and I'll show you what it sounds like. But I'm going to have to put the mic down again. Okay, so can you see how there's how do you see the waveform here? I'm going to chop it somewhere just really random. And delete the rest, and then I'll play this so you can hear what it sounds like. We'll turn it down a bit because it's going to be really loud. Can you hear that? Yeah, and that's because of the way that the waveform is when I cut it, and I'm going to zoom into it now so you can see. Can you see that I've like cut it right where the waveform is open? So what you should do really is try and find a place where it's kind of as closed as possible. So in this case, it would be like somewhere like there. And then you need to do that at the beginning of the sample and at the end. Otherwise, you'll have a click at the start as well. Okay, see, there it's happened again. So we'll find a spot like this bit, probably around there, but then that might still click a little bit because at the top it's closed, but then at the bottom it's still a little bit open, but that's where you can fade it in a tiny bit and then you get rid of that click. Loop it and it shouldn't be doing it anymore. Welcome. Okay, anyone else have any more questions? Yeah, you had a question. Which track? Sorry. I wouldn't say like out of my comfort zone, but I struggled working on the breaky one that you asked me to play because I haven't really used that many breaks before, and like the break I wanted to use was like just sounded a bit shit, and like I was trying to make it sound more dynamic, and like it's like the properties of the break were like energetic and everything that I wanted, but the actual quality of the sample wasn't very good. So I had to like kind of do a lot to it to make it sound as good as I could with the knowledge that I have, which when it comes to making things sound like really good is not that much. So I guess that was challenging, and that kind of brought me out of my comfort zone, because I was also very aware of using breaks, because like breaks were just such a thing. Like last year everybody was using them, and I didn't want it to just sound like another like, you know, breaky track. Probably does, but I guess yeah, that's probably the one for those reasons. Anyone else? I saw somebody before and then they put their hand down. Go for it. Ask away. No. But maybe I will now. Why is it great? Ah, okay. Mm-hmm. So do you want something that sounds a bit more analog? Yeah. I mean, would you buy a synth? Would you buy a physical synth? Okay. Because like microcorgs, if you buy a secondhand one, you can get them actually quite cheap. And they're not analog, but they really, really sound analog. And they have like, they're so versatile. It's like, it's what I would recommend anybody to buy as their first synth, because you can get them cheap and like they're really good. You can do like really good bass, really good pads, really good like everything. And it's like, you know, it has a vocoder, which, you know, who doesn't want one? And it has, you know, it has kind of like the presets are like separated into genres, which seems really basic, but it's kind of helpful and fun. So yeah, and it has a really good arpeggio. It's just a good all-rounder basically. And like the ones I said before as well, the Korg, the two Korg plugins, the M1 and the Monopoly. The Monopoly sounds a bit more analog. The M1 is very digital, but they're super cheap as well. The plugins, they're like pretty basic, but that's probably why they're cheap. So yeah. No, I'm too scared. I think like I did consider it, especially after writing the album, but I think it's I think it would take over my life, and I really like DJing, and I would probably wouldn't be DJing as much, and I wouldn't put as much energy into my DJing as I should. And when I don't focus on that, I don't enjoy DJing. It's when I don't spend time like looking for music and stuff. So I think I would probably not do it. And also because it's such a like, I don't know, when you're playing other people's music and you play a track that like doesn't go down that well, you can be like, well, I'm never going to play that one again. It's not my track. Whereas if you're just playing your own music and people don't like it, it's like, I don't know if I could handle it. Yeah, but maybe one day. Any more questions? No? You? Hi. What's my what? Sorry. Oh, so on Discogs, I use the list quite a lot. So if you like look for a track that you like, see in the corner underneath the videos whether it's been put on any lists, because like Discogs users make lists, and then you go through the list, and then you can find like Discogs users that make shitloads of lists. There's this one called Cleese.1, which I think he makes one a week or something, and he has like thousands of lists, and they're all like, a lot of them are really good. I found a lot of music through those. Also on the explore tab on Discogs, I just like refine the search by like country. Sometimes I'm like Belgium from 1996 and tribal tech house, and just like listen to all those records. Some of them are really bad, obviously, but yeah, you can like refine your search like that, and that can be fun. And like I'll listen through like every single page, and then when you open a page and you're like, this label looks cool, you click on that label, keep that tab open, and then it just becomes this like never-ending sea of tabs. It's pretty much that. And then YouTube, trying to find like different algorithms in YouTube, so you like click on one track and then open a new tab with that track, rather than just rather than just clicking on the tracks that come on the little playlist on the side, because then it just opens the same algorithm. You open the track in a new playlist, no, in a new tab, and then it will open like a slightly different algorithm. And then you find something different and do it again and find a slightly different algorithm. So yeah, that. and Bandcamp. Although I haven't done the algorithm thing in Bandcamp yet, but it's my next target. Yeah. Yeah. Hi. No, I do it myself. For my album, I actually went to David Pearson Sound's studio, and I got some tips from him because I was really struggling with some stuff, and he gave me a couple of tips for plugins. One was this filter that I use, which is just like a really good like surgical filter. Which one is it? Where is it? Audio units. It's the Fab Filter EQ. Sorry, so not a filter, an EQ. And I use that a lot for EQing. And then the other thing, because I was struggling a lot with like kick drums and bass, because pretty much most of my tracks, you'll notice the bass is like in between the kicks, because I've always found it really difficult to have them both playing at the same time and EQing them so they both sound good. It's hard. There is an article on RA actually about that. It's called Low End Theory. If anybody wants to read that, it's really helpful, and it talks about how to EQ kick drums and bass lines when they're hitting at the same time so that they sound good. It's quite helpful. But I got recommended this sidechain plugin called Track Spacer, which is sick. I love it. Where is it? And it's this one, and it just sidechains. But it just sounds really good, and I started sidechaining other stuff, and I used that to mix stuff down, and I kind of just did it in my studio by ear, and then just got people to listen to it and check it and listen to it in different studios to make sure that there wasn't like random frequencies poking out. Then made notes, went back to my studio, and yeah, I did it myself basically. Yep. Hi. So they sent me all of the songs. I picked the one I wanted, and then they sent me all the stems for that particular song. Yeah, but not the project. So I had this, look. Here are all of the elements. So just every single stem, like what I have, like, whoa. Yeah, so every single element just bounced as an audio file, like this. And then I just picked the ones I wanted to use. But yeah, that's how they sent it to me. Separate stems. Yeah. And you. Hi. Just one whole thing. Yeah. I actually, for Universal, they asked me to send mastered stems, and I was like, no, I don't do that. I don't know how to do that. And then it was fine, but I don't do that. I think I don't know if that many dance producers do that. I think that's more for like acoustic, but maybe they do. Maybe I'm just talking out my ass. Maybe, yeah. But yeah, the answer is no. Any more questions? Nope. Okay. Well, I think this is. Oh, hi, you again. I used to send demos to labels, and then I started my own label because there was a couple of tracks that like nobody was signing, and I really wanted to release them, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna do it myself. And then since I started my own label, I get a lot more requests from labels, and I mainly just do stuff on my label now. When I was kind of less well known, I would send stuff to people, and then kind of the more my profile grew or whatever, and since I started my label, it's kind of the other way around now. But I have like my home labels that I want to release on, and I don't want to release on too many labels, and I've already released on like 8 or something, so I'm gonna just keep going back to like Idle Hands and my label, and yeah, just kind of do things for friends, I would say. Yeah. No more? Okay. well, I think that's me. I think that's it. Thank you for coming, for listening to me waffling on. I hope it was helpful.